I get scared when they read a bio that is long. At first I sent 2 lines and then they send it back and they said, no, we need more. We need to make sure that the people that are going to attend have an understanding of who you are. So trying to squeeze a career into 1 page is a bit difficult, right? But big up to THUD team, to the supporters, to the collaborators, and to everybody that is here today. Big up to you. Can I have a round of applause to yourself? For making our time and being here, and I think sharing the same vision. I've met some of the people that are sitting here, and I'm yet to meet a lot of the individuals. So when Dr. LG, I call him LG, Dr. LG, so when he called me and said, no, you need to talk about vision. And I started thinking about, what is it that he wants me to touch on? I'm going to be talking to entrepreneurs, I'm going to be talking to established business people, I'm going to be talking to venture capitalists, esteemed individuals about vision. I think it starts with the vision. Everything else that we do starts with the vision. And I'm going to share a personal story, my life story, how it fits into the corporate and how it fits into the world of business. I grew up in the township of Soshanguve, Block BB. So I don't know if there's anyone from Pretoria. Thank you. So it's like, whenever they see somebody from Pretoria, they say, hey, when are you from the Daman? Yeah. So, but you know, it's a trend. It's a trademark that Pretoria has given for the way people speak. It's got a lot of things. The way people give names to clothes, like Jewish. Did you know that? I asked one of my older brothers, like, yo, why do you guys call clothes Jewish? And he didn't know. And I asked my uncle, why do you call clothes Jewish? He said, because in the days, in the 70s, the Jewish guys were the ones that were selling quality clothing. They were the ones that were selling quality stuff that only a few people would go and buy after saving money. So when somebody comes with a quality shirt, they say, yo, the man of a Jewish blind is there's a blind. You see? So they knew quality at that time, but they associated quality with a specific grouping of people. And that became a universal brand. And that drove how people spoke from generation to generation, and they started talking about this Jewish. And for a generation it was passed on. We didn't know. We just said, oh, Jewish clothes. Okay. We could just match the two, right? To get to my story, when I grew up in a family of 5. At that time 4. My brother came late bloomer. 10 years later, it was an oopsie. You know what they talk about? When my father got pissed off and said, I thought I was finished. And then my mother said, no, it's not up to you. You know? So when my brother came 10 years later, but when it was the 4 of us, we had 2 other cousins. So it's a typical story. Black people living in the township, 4-room house, 2 cousins coming to stay with you. You know the rest. But what was important in our upbringing is that my father was a breadwinner and he was working in Hamaskara. Those that come from Pretoria would know Hamaskara. And there's a factory or industrial area called Babele. So during the days of Uputatswana, Babele was the industrial hub. And it used to house different other organizations that manufactured different things, socks, furniture, and he worked for a company called Pilot. So when we were growing up with our cousins and our brothers, my mother was the entrepreneur in the house. So my mother sold everything, like from Tupperware to socks to pants to Oatlere. I don't know if Oatlere is what, second-hand clothing, and to the laslapi. So laslapi is, they would take old fabric, right? Different colors. They call it cloth now in this modern English, and you buy it very expensive. We used to get it from my mom as something that she would make so that we can get an extra blanket. So the laslapi would be the different fabrics put together to create a duvet, to create something that would be a bedspread. Do you remember those? Does anyone remember those? A quilt. Oh, you see people that know the English word? A quilt, all right? A quilt. Yeah, so a quilt. So my mom would sell quilts. So she would make a few quilts and for the family, and then she would sell the others. But she started, planting seeds of creating things and starting to sell. My mother was one person who worked at a dry clean. She bent a shirt and never went back. She came back and said, that job was not good. My father said, what happened? No, that job was not good. So, but are you going back to her? No, that job was not good. She just could not handle it when somebody was behind her telling her to do something. So she bent the shirt and she never went back. And she told us later in the years, she said, look, the reason I didn't go, it was because I bent the shirt, because somebody was yelling behind me and I couldn't take it. I know how to iron. I've got 4 kids. So she's like getting on and on and on. But what she did from then on, she looked for something to do. Amongst us, it was 3 boys and 1 girl. She planted a seed for us to set goals, to have a vision, to say whenever we started anything, she would tell us, you're going to make this much. So here I was selling amagwinya inside a kit bag with plastic bag. You know how I made it to be a cooler, like a cooler, so that the fat cook does not lose the temperature. I would wrap the kit bag inside with plastic, and then newspaper. Then, when I get into the bus to school, you get hot and fresh fat cooks. And then she had to then learn the art of reducing the fat. You know what, sometimes when you take a fat cook, you have it, you squeeze it. After squeezing it off, you're left with half a fat cook. So she learned the art to actually buy animal fat. The residual of the leftovers from meat that is cut off. So what do you call it? Afal. Yeah, so she would buy sheep, specifically sheep, right? Sheep fat parts, and mix it with the fish oil so that it doesn't go into the dough. And that made our fat cooks different because it wasn't fatty. But she had a vision. She wanted her family to have sustenance. She wanted us to learn how is it that we're going to grow an income. So we started looking at those, but we were forced. Let me not lie to you. It was not optional whether you're going to have to sell or not. No. As you go to school, your school bag and your kit bag, fat cook books. It was just a standard carrying order. You have your books, you have your fat cooks. And then we went on. But she then planted the seed of having a vision. And on my father's side, my father was a carpenter. Hard-working man. Hard-working man. I owe my life to that man. For 45 years, until today, he's been a carpenter. I have sinuses, I hate dust. I always used to say to them, I use my brain, not my hands. And my brother was the engineer who now works at VW. He was the one who was always looking at my father standing like that. What is that? What is that? And I was the one running around away from the dust. But my father also had a vision, because he was the one who was instilling the education discipline in us. He's saying, you are going to study. If you didn't do your homework, he goes in and he goes for the hit. These 2 individuals impacted how we put our lives into a specific vision that we bought into. Education and the ability to generate income. We had to fuse the 2. It was never going to be separate. We had to understand that we needed to gain knowledge throughout the time. We needed to learn each and every time. My father finished in Form 6, which is Form 5, I think, which is, I think, Standard 6. And my mother finished, I think, in Standard 4. But my father had aspirations to study, and he couldn't. So he drove his vision through us as his subordinates. So when we're working in teams, there's this thing called the shared vision. There's one person who's the founder of the vision, and there's a shared mental model. So if you came in teams, also look up and read on this thing of a shared mental model. So when we were growing up, he then instilled this discipline in us to find out new things, to learn. And my mother instilled in us the discipline to sell. She's still selling today. She sells perfumes. I just bought Tupperware with my wife recently. And she sells other things. You know, each and every time I go, when I get home, yeah, Thabo, you don't know, wait to get one is something. This you don't have to miss. Bona, take half, take this. She still sells to me. Unemployed since then. So she sold this vision of us going in. But what it did to us, what it did to me in particular, it created a discipline in me of understanding that there needs to be a balance. As much as one has a vision to get to a specific place, you need to balance. You cannot go and pitch and do a business without having the right background, the knowledge of the product, and I think Lebo said that quality in whatever you're going to produce. People judge you. You might just have that one chance, and that chance might be it. And let me tell you what happened. Fast forward 2008. We go, my father says, you know what, I'm tired, I've been working for about 30 years. I need to go and retire. But I've always wanted to run my own business. So now think, this is the person who pushes on education, not an entrepreneur. And my mother says, no, go ahead, guys. So we take our life savings, and my father says, I'm going to quit my job. He takes his life savings. We start talking to the Steinhoff group to start a timber city. So we go in, we put our money, we put 800,000 into the game, and we think, no, we've got it. Why? Because my father was technically strong. I had the business acumen. So we said, no, we've got this. We went for tests, we passed the test, tick. Then we said, okay, fine, now we can run a timber city. Then we want a franchise in Mabopane to open a timber city. The biggest mistake we did was that we did not do our homework when we started on this. Our vision was misguided because when we put the plans in place, we did a very good business plan because we got somebody to do it for us. We got a good location because somebody found it for us. We had a concept about the product, but it was a product list based on the Cape Town Salt River store in Mabopane. So we got picket fences in Mabopane. The vision was in the right direction, but it was misguided. Let me tell you, 2 years later, actually 6 months into the business, we started fighting. I fought with my father, I fought with my wife. My wife gave me an ultimatum: you choose between the business and your children and me. So now I had to choose whether I'm going to forsake this vision and I had this other one to build a family. Guess what? The business collapsed. We had projected 12 million turnover for the first 2 years. We were left with a debt of 1.2 million. We ended up liquidating the business. But my mother was still selling. She still sells today. And let me tell you the difference between the two scenarios, right? With capital, we failed. With technical knowledge, we failed. With the right business acumen, we failed. Why? Because our vision was not supported by solid evidence that what we are doing can survive. The location was not right. And the knowledge that we had was not sufficient to manage a team of 22 people. So you go from not managing people and you manage 22 people, then you get to understand what happens on a Monday. When somebody who's a machine operator, he doesn't pitch, and that machine operator seems, is the only person that does the machining. One of my mentees is here, was doing our branding, and he can tell you our branding cost us 110,000 to put a big board. It was all put to waste because the way we're doing things was misguided. But what we've learned now since then, and what I have learned, is that a good vision is backed up by a good fact base. And a good fact base is backed up by the right skills that you put into the business. So if you have that fact base and you build the skills, and you, as Slebo was saying, that you need to find experts for the specialized things that they do. You can't be jack of all trades. And at that time, I was running between Midrand and Mabopane to try and run a business. I was not present. And I use this analogy of running. My body might not show as a runner, but I sometimes run when I'm forced by my wife, when she doesn't have a running partner waking up. So, but I do practice running sometimes. So when you run, if you're going to prepare for a marathon, you need to make sure that number one, you practice, right? You can't pitch at, what is this run, this marathon? The comrades, right? Looking like me. And having not practiced, you will die. That's one thing for sure. And you can't pitch there wearing your Timberlands and your baggy jeans, thinking that you're going to run the entire distance. So you need the right tools. You need to practice. By the time you get there, you should have at least done a few half marathons and you would have built the strength. And as you're running, think about it. As you're running, you need to endure. There are pains that are going to come. There are times when you're running, you want to stop. And you need to know how to treat those pains. There are water stops. Some of the water stoppages you're going to have to pass in order for you to catch up. But you need to continue running. And what we did as a mistake is that we went with the wrong tools to the race. We were very much loaded, heavily loaded. We didn't have the right tools and we had not exercised. And when we got to the race, halfway we got cramps. We only had Coke and water. We didn't have our heat rubs for the sore legs. So make sure that when you run, you continuously find the right tools that you're going to use. And when you run, there are people who also coach you and tell you, no, you need to do this. 10 left, 10 right. One thing that I found about my mother was that the reason she joins all of these buying schemes is that she attends all the workshops. If it's Tupperware workshop in Benoni, she's there. If it's a Tupperware workshop in Eastern Cape, she's there. Why? Because those are product specialists. They know the product. So they impart knowledge and she knows how to then carry out. What did we do? We went into an industry that is predominantly run by white, 50-year-old men and mostly Afrikaans who are carpenters and builders and who have a building experience and who know the market. None of our coaches at the time were in building. None of our coaches had actually done a project more than $1 million, but we're projecting 12. Some like thinking 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. By the time you get to 12, the business just went down, right? So it's important to have the right people that are going to coach you. You cannot take a sumo wrestler to coach you on how to run a marathon. That is not going to work. You need to get the right person who's run a marathon before, who's going to tell you of the peaks and valleys, right? Your vision is the finish line, but you need to know how you are going to go through the peaks and valleys. And those peaks and valleys are what will make you go finish the race or not. But we've learned, I have learned personally from that, because I've been able, afterwards, to establish 2 businesses. I've established a management consulting business that in the first 6 months it made 700,000 rands from the lessons that I learned from failing. Why? Because my vision at that time now is much more defined, is much more clear, is backed by fact base. I don't do things I don't know. And I would hire people that are experts in that space. So if you're going to have a vision, back it up. Back it up. If it's not backed up, then do a little bit more prior to you going into this. It may be your life, it may be your passion. I was telling somebody now earlier on, passion without an income will leave you a poor man. You can just hit that guitar on the corner and play notes, but people won't listen. How are you going to buy the next guitar if you don't make sure that you provide a head and your notes are in tune and people love your music? Passion without income is useless. So drive your passion and drive your vision in a way that you're striking with purpose and making sure that you understand where you want to get to. You will get there. Just like those runners, they don't sprint through the marathon, but each and every one of them, they pace themselves. They learn from the other runners. They drink at the right time. They stop at the right time. They walk sometimes. You don't have to always run. Sometimes you have to walk and watch others run past you. You will get them when they start walking because you'll be running. Thank you very much.